Okay, so it's the start of a new season 6, hard to believe for the podcast. And today, as we start a new year as well, 2026, season 6, a lot happening in the world. And I am privileged to welcome someone to launch season 6 who can share some insight on quite a large current event, but can also share insight on things we may not know about a country that we're hearing a lot about. So I would really like to genuinely welcome Meriely Arias to the podcast. I hope I said that correctly.
You did. You did.
Thank you. And so Meriely is the director with the Venezuelan Canadian Society of British Columbia. And today it's just really great to have you here. I'd like to talk about Venezuela because, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, few people know much about the country other than what they see in the headlines, myself included. And let's learn more about Venezuela as we kind of run through this, if that's okay, because I imagine there's a lot more than what we're seeing in the headlines when it comes to the country of Venezuela. Aware of what is happening currently and what happened in Venezuela. The president, or I don't know if we want to say former president, how we want to describe him, Nicolas Maduro, was taken into custody by the U.S. Army, the Trump administration, and brought with his wife to U.S. soil to face charges. There are different sides, different perspectives. Before we jump to that, I really want to just introduce our guest properly. So, Meriely, if you don't mind, can you speak a little bit about your journey to Canada, when you came here, or if you were born here, your connection to Venezuela, and what you do in your role as director with the Venezuelan Canadian Society of BC, as well as your other professional work?
Sure. I am Venezuelan through and through. I was born and raised in Venezuela. I came to Canada in 2008. My husband is Canadian. His grandma was a resident of Burnaby. She married a Venezuelan guy and moved there and never came back. Her kids and grandkids have dual citizenship. I am one of 7 directors of the Venezuelan Canadian Society of BC. We promote Venezuelan culture, so this is perfect. That's my favorite topic. I can talk all day long. And I'm also customer service in a printing company. 27. We moved directly to BC. We lived in Langley, then Cloverdale, and now we're in Fleetwood. Venezuelan was beginning to be difficult. It has been a dangerous country for a while, in the sense that personal security was not easy. You had to be mindful of the areas that you were in, the times that you were out. You have to be mindful of your surroundings and things like that. It's easy to recognize those things when you're away. When you're in there, you don't necessarily notice them. It becomes part of your day-to-day life. You're home by 6 because that's what you do. You're not thinking, oh, I need to be home before dark. But it was getting to be more complicated. And my husband and I, we were newlyweds. And for us to be able to create a home and have family was going to be difficult in terms of salaries and being able to afford a place to live, to own a place. That was going to be complicated. So we decided that it was the best option to move to Canada. And they have been great. I was just scared because what people hear from Canada is that it's very cold.
Yes, it's so funny you say that. That's my husband and I were talking the other day. It's the first thing people say.
Yes. So I thought I was gonna live in an igloo somewhere on a block of ice. I was fortunate enough to go to college in Spain, in Europe, and they would say that um if the temperature goes down to 0, then that's good. You don't feel, it's not cold, it's not hot, it's just 0. But below that is complicated. So I remember I was asking my husband, but does it get to zero? And he was like, yeah, because he came first. He didn't understand what it was. And I had my winter clothing from Spain. So I packed it all up, and I came in December, the beginning of December. I brought the thickest, warmest jacket that I could find. I had one that was to my feet almost. And so I was carrying all that. Of course, I couldn't wear it on the plane, and I was carrying the whole thing. And I got here, and it was like 10 degrees. And yes, I'm coming from like 25 degrees normally. So it was cold, but not what I thought that it would be. And then we were staying with family, Canadian family, and I was asking them, and they would say, oh, no, we don't get snow. It's nothing here. We're super mild. So I don't know if you were in Vancouver in 2008, but that was a great snow year. It started snowing, and I'm looking through the window. I'm like, and what is that is falling? And I'm like, nothing. And so they looked outside, and they said, ah, yeah, some flurries. It's not going to stick. And to this day, I keep joking, oh, it's not going to stick. And it was like 2 feet the next morning.
Yes, probably more than we'd seen in many, many years from what I remember.
It was a great winter for me. I was like, yeah, I got it. I had
The
my
first time you'd
white
seen snow.
Christmas. I had seen snow in Spain, but I had never seen this much.
Yes. Yeah, it is quite an experience. My Dominican family, some of them have still not seen it, and we've taken some up, on rides just up to the top of the mountain here in town to
Hmm.
see it because
Hmm.
it's quite a thing, and I don't know that because I was, born in the environment. But I want to talk about what has taken place with the president being taken into custody by U.S. forces, the Trump administration.
Hmm.
So, for those who are not aware, I think most are, there has been a lot of turbulence in Venezuela for quite some years now. People have been going to various other countries. I'll allow you to kind of expand on why and how that has been happening, bringing him and his wife to the United States. I know that you cannot speak for all British Columbians who are from Venezuela or all who are Canadians who are from Venezuela or who have ties there, but just what are your thoughts, Meriely, as well as what you've been hearing within kind of your circle of those who are from Venezuela as to how they're feeling about him being taken into custody?
I think it's a general sentiment of hope. And I would say most of the Venezuelan people within the country and outside are somewhat happy that this happened. Me personally, I do not think there was any other way. This person would not have walked out to a police station and say, hey, here I am. But there's also uncertainty of what the future will be. I know there's some people they're protesting him being taken. Some people say was illegal. I cannot pretend to know US laws or international law, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. But I would say, as a Venezuelan, it does give us hope that there will be a change. This person is one of the faces of a government that has driven my country into a humanitarian crisis, economical crisis that have made almost 8 million people from Venezuela to leave the country. So it is not Venezuela's issues are not only one country's, it affects many countries. The countries surrounding Venezuela have taken the brunt of the migration, but it extends, right? So even in the US we have heard, of the rhetoric, migrants and illegal migrants coming in waves, and there's, you know, sometimes they're allowed, sometimes they're not. But that will give you an indication of the desperation that people have. You could compare our migration with the Syrian migration, but we don't have a war. We don't have a civil war. So we don't have any kind of armed, you know, issues. So people are just driven by the humanitarian crisis and the economic crisis. not being able to provide for their families. So many grandparents have stayed behind with the kids while the parents make the trip. Many have left on foot in very dire situations. The transit is a very difficult one to do, more so if you do it on foot. They go through jungles, and I cannot imagine. So that would give you an indication of the situation that they're living in. And so I don't think anybody can blame a Venezuelan for being happy, regardless of what the outcome would be. Like the first emotion is like, yes, finally, something is happening.
Now, pardon my ignorance. I know a little bit more about what's happening in Cuba with things there. And I'm wondering, would you make a bit of a comparison, or can you just set the stage for what life is like or was like before the capture of the president? How were people living? What was life like? Why were 8 million fleeing the country?
I haven't been in Venezuela since 2016. So all I know is by, stories that you hear, things that you see online. I would say the migration in Venezuela could be compared to maybe the one from Mexico or Dominican Republic in the 80s and 70s. Is people leaving to be able to work, to make money, to then send home. Because the minimum salary, I don't know the exact amount, but the minimum salary in Venezuela, it's not something that you can use for a living. Even if you have more than one in a house, it's not possible to make a living out of that. And so that's why people have made the decision to leave, because then they can work and send money. And that's how people in Venezuela have been able to somewhat make a living by um, getting that little bit of money. And then, you know, we have what we call tomatoes is it's the informal commercial trades that you see on the streets. And so you would get different things. You would get from food to clothing on out of a person that sells out of a little tent or a blanket on the floor on the street. It is impressive how quickly they can calculate the conversion rates. People have euros, they have US dollars that they get from their family members. And it's impressive when I hear from my cousins how quickly they can. This costs this much in bolivars, and that equivals to this much in the US. But then you have the government rate, and then you have the black market rate. The black market will give you more, but sometimes you have to go with the government rate. And then, but I don't have enough in US. I have some euros, and okay, so euros is this much. It is impressive. I wouldn't be able, like, I would be even with a calculator, like, okay, I have to go and Google, like, what is the rate today? And then how much is this and that? And then, yes. And it shows how resilient the people in Venezuela are that have to adapt to living in this kind of situations. Yeah, it's something that we could not imagine living here.
No, no. The Dominican Republic, where I mentioned my producer and husband is from, there are Venezuelans who are fleeing to Dominican Republic. And Dominican Republic would not be described as a country, a desirable destination for living. A lot of corruption, a lot of crime. And my husband made the comment to me, it shows how challenging things are in Venezuela when they're trying to get.
Yes. It is challenging, but also because of we had a large migration. I don't recall if it was the 80s. I was born in 1981, but I do remember um, having a lot of Dominicans. We have we have even adapted words and and things because of migration. So I would say probably has to do with kids of Dominican parents that have a way of working legally because they have a passport, or they can claim a passport, they can claim a citizenship. And that is a way that Venezuelans have tried to immigrate in a legal way. You have it with many Spaniards, but Colombians too. We had a big Colombian migration at some point. And so everybody that had the opportunity to make a living and not worry about legality in other countries, I've probably done that. And it's probably a step to get closer to the US as well.
Is there still the desire to be in the US, or are they looking further north to us in Canada?
I think the idea is to go to the US for many reasons. One of them is because you probably know somebody or more than one person in a particular area that will help you, gives you support or some kind of network. Um, is the idea that the currency is the most valuable. It's whatever you could go that you can get US dollars to send home. That's probably what people are trying to do. Mm. It's not common and it's not probably useful to have any other currency other than US or euros. You probably would have to convert that anyway, and then you will lose some. So if you can get to a place where you can earn either one of those, then, and yeah, Dominican Republic with the tourism, you probably would get um, money, and you probably would get tips, and that will, you know, you don't have to declare that and all of that. Um, I would say that's what people were trying to do, just to get to a place where they can work, so they can send money back. Not all of them. We have some bad apples too. But my first thought was, because I never imagined, like, it didn't cross my mind that the US would be doing this. I didn't realize the extent of deployment that they have done on the coast until we saw them later in the news. But I thought, is this internal? Is it something? Is it a coup? I didn't know. Then like 5 minutes later, we received a phone call from a friend, and he said, no, the U.S. is taking over, and he was super happy, and he was doing fine. Like, he had power, he had connection, no problem. At the same time that we learned the news, we heard from our family members that they were doing fine. So in that regard, we were okay. I have a family member that is close to a military base, and they lost power. They didn't have any issues that base was not attacked, but the power was cut off. I heard Trump took ownership of that, and they spent, I think, a couple days without power. I don't know right now whether they have power or not. They decided to not comment about the situation for fear of repercussions.
Before we move on to learning more about the country, which I'm keen to do, uh, I'm curious about what your hopes are for the country, and also what your, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, what your hopes are for the country versus what you think this capture will actually result in. There, we know that that's a desire for the United States. There's no secret there. That they'll be running the country until further notice.
Mhm.
Although I'm sure for most Venezuelans, that's a relief compared to who was running it prior. Thoughts on your hopes for the country, and do they differ from what you genuinely believe may be the results of the capture?
I think we all hope to have for this to be um, a way for democracy to be restored in the country. In the past election, the presidential election, I think there has been a congressional one after that. But the past presidential election, there was a question about legality, whether Maduro had won or not. The opposition leader said that he was elected, and they had the receipts from the machines that was said to prove that they were right, that they had won the election. And Maduro said, no, that is a lie. We have the truth. We have the proof. But he was never shown. He swore himself, basically. So there's always a doubt. Like, is it really? What is it true? This one side is showing us some kind of receipt, but what is the other? But yeah, he basically just say, I'm not going. I'm staying. And that was that. So if this is the beginning of a change, I think we all welcome that. Our hope is for the best outcome to be. If it's a transition will have to happen, that we all know. But if it's a transition where the US is involved, and how does that look like, we don't know yet. Probably too early to tell, but I'm pretty sure everybody is hoping the same thing, that at the end of the road, whatever that might be, it's shorter than longer, we hope. And we end up with a country that is democratic, and we have the option to choose whoever we want to run it.
And things that, the media will report on in detail. What is the country like? What is the landscape, the people, the culture? Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, Venezuela has been in the news uh, in the past multiple decades for the political turmoil and the migrants, but Venezuela's more than that. It's even more than beauty queens and oil and resources. Venezuela is natural beauty, is white sand and blue water, seawater, is the Caribbean, is a mixture of the migrants that have come with their cultures. It's a mixture of the culture that we received from the African slaves that came with the Europeans. Is a mixture of the European cultures that we received with the conquistadors, and then after we welcome the people escaping the wars in Europe, we have a mixture of races and colors and accents and ways of speaking and food. And we have or a Christmas meal. It's something that we only eat in Christmas. We don't make it any other time of the year. We even say, some people would say that it's bad luck to eat it any other time of the year. For or Christmas celebration starts in November 8th, because that is a religious date. It's the patron of a city that is known for their Christmas. It's a particular Christmas carols that we have. It's a very Latino sound. It's not the typical Christmas carol that you would hear. This is a party, this is a celebration. And so this city is known for that. So they celebrate the patron, the saint that rules the city, with this music, and that's what starts. That's what we consider our Christmas music, and that starts our Christmas. And so we're allowed to eat. You can eat anytime, but we say that we're allowed to eat from that date on, from November 8th all the way to January 6th, which is the Three Kings Day. And that's it. Then, like, if you have leftovers, you keep them frozen until the next year. So we make it's Venezuelans will kill me if I say this, but the closest that you could relate it to is a tamal. It's the cornmeal patty. It's seasoned dough, cornmeal dough, and on a plantain leaves. So you have the plantain leaves, and then you spread the dough, and then you do a stew that changes depending on the area that you're in the countries. If you're in the coast, you probably have fish in it. If you're in the interior, you're gonna have meat, and um, that stew is made. And back in the day, we were told in school that it's because the slaves were not allowed to eat proper food; they would eat leftovers from their owners. So any leftover coming from the kitchen would have to go into a pot and a fire. Otherwise it would go bad, right? Bacteria and all of that. And so that would continue cooking. They were not allowed to have bread. So they had the cornmeal. And so they created this dish, and they were not allowed to have plates. So they had the plantain leaves. So you have the cornmeal and the plantain, and you have the stew. And then we do decorations, what we call decorations. So you have capers and you have almonds and olives, and that is again the European culture coming through. And we wrap it up, we steam it, and that's what we eat. We make batches of it and we eat throughout the whole. And it's back home, you would go to somebody's house and they would give you some, and you bring some of your own, and it's the whole family affair to make, because you make a lot. And it's a whole thing to share it.
And do you make it here?
I do.
You do.
I do. It's important to me that my kids grow with the Venezuelan culture. And so we make it. And they really like the whole thing, because everybody is a production line. Everybody has a task. Some would spread the dough, some would do the filling, some would do the wrapping, some tie it up. So the kids always have a little thing to do. Like they start with, some people were joking that it's like, your position in the family, your status in the family as you move forward in that production line. And you start with the crappiest job, which is just washing the plantain leaves. And then as you get, better, more seasoned within the family, then at some point you get to tie them up, because you wrap them, but you have to tie them, and you have to do it tightly so water doesn't come in. So the kids start putting the little decorations on them, and they move on. And I think for next year, my goal is at some point they're gonna make them, and I'm just gonna be directing. They have not. No, it is. It is. I want them to experience what a warm water on a beach is. We went to Europe, and they were surprised that the water was warm. I'm like, this is no warm. It's like it's warmer than it is here, but it's not. It's not what it's like for us. It's probably the same in the Dominican Republic. We have the same look of the white sand and the blue water, and they're like, "Is that true?" Yeah, but no, that's a photo. No, that's not. Um, that is what it looks like.
And
I want to be able to
undisturbed at
try
this
to.
point.
Sorry?
And undisturbed at this point, because the resorts haven't taken over all the beach fronts, because it hasn't come to, you haven't become that tourist destination. So right now it's, I would
Yes.
imagine, quite undisturbed.
I don't, um that that's a good question. I don't know whether, I seem to recall at some point that there was some law in Venezuela that said that the beach front was nobody's property. For me growing up, you would go to a hotel, the hotel would have its private, what they would call a private beach. People would not be able to come in. But I seem to recall, I might be wrong on that there was a law that said it was not a property. Anybody could go. But I'm from the coast, I'm not from the capital. So in my state, there are areas that have no development, because they're little islands. So what you do is you hire a little boat that would take you, drop you off, and pick you up at the end of the day. And so you're in this tiny little block of sand that has maybe a few trees, and you spend a day. But at the same time, there would be little boats that bring alcohol, like beers, to sell, and food. And so even though you're under a remote little island, there would be, people coming in and selling you things. They would sell you fresh oysters that they just take out of the beach and open it for you, and a little bit of lemon, and there you go. My husband he tells the story that he was one walking on a beach, and there was a fisherman sitting on a chair on the water. It was somewhat shallow, but my husband says he thought that this person may have had a bucket of something on the side, because he would say, "Do you want a lobster?" And And they would say, yeah. And he would go and rummage on something on the side, but seemingly saying, oh, I just, poke the ground here and one will come up. And he would pull one up and say, do you like this size? And you would say, no, I don't want that size. That's too small. And he would put it down and probably he would bring the same one up. But yeah, how about this one? And then, but the whole show was like, we have plenty here that is just poke a little hole and something will come up. So yeah, I wish that my kids will be able to see that at some point. That's going to be, it is. It is. I know
Warm
it's,
people, vibrant people, friendly.
yeah, yes, the Venezuelan is um a very happy person. Regardless of how bad your day is going, you're always smiling. And we make jokes of everything. And even now in this situation, there's like 1,001 memes joking about it and making light of the situation. Might be a way of, you know, um, recovering, to claim some happiness out of a situation that is not ideal. I don't know. Some people say that we're just masking, instead of dealing with any negative feelings that we may have. But it's like that, regardless of how bad it is, like, because sometimes you come out here and it's snowing and people will be complaining that they have to, clean their driveways and driving is crazy, and for us that would turn into a joke, that you'd be joking with your neighbor because you're moving snow, or you would say, oh, you know what, let's put some on the side and have our drinks in there, so when we come back in the afternoon and we have, we can have some drinks, and we would say something like, you know what, I left my kind of my perfectly good and warm country for this. Nobody told me this. I didn't read the little print when I was deciding, or something like that. So think that is something that I don't think we have been able to teach our kids. My sister was asking me what did they think about the whole situation, and I said that they're offended. And she's like, but why are they offended? And I'm like, well, they're Canadians. And this person has been, saying mean things about Canada. And so for them, it's like, oh, this guy is doing mean things to this other country um, that I am related to. And she's like, wow, yeah, they're Canadian. I'm like, yeah. So it's a different lens. We see that in many ways, and sometimes and things that we don't realize, like in that situation, that we had to stop for a second, like, why are you feeling that way? And then they said, well, because this person had been saying mean things about Canada, and now he's doing this. So, like, how come? It should, like, what they would say is like, but that shouldn't be. Like, somebody should not go and do these things. That's just mean. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it is true.
And they're right. Yes, and they
Yes.
are right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
The wisdom of children.
I know it's sometimes they teach you things. I'm like, I did not even think that you were registering this whole thing. But yes, I welcome the opportunity, to bring them in. I want to brag with my family that my kids speak Spanish, and they have a weird
Yes.
accent. We all do now because we, yeah,
As do my kids.
yeah. It's funny because I noticed that the way they pronounce, not the pronunciation, but the way they conjugate verbs is the English version, and I find myself and my husband speaking that way too. And so we're like, yeah, we're all gonna speak weird. It's fine, gonna be fine, but they're gonna be
At
happy
least you're
that
putting the effort. Yes.
they can communicate. Yes, yeah. Um, I had little cousins from the U.S., and that was some things that we wanted to connect with them when they would come visit, but we couldn't because they couldn't understand what we were saying. And so we made a point to speak with the kids in Spanish and make sure that they would understand. And they make an effort to, they would text us, but they text in Spanish, crazy words sometimes and crazy spelling, but they make the effort to do that. And so, yes, I want to be able to do that. That's the hope. I think being educated about different countries is always a plus. You never know when you're gonna need to understand a different perspective. And for Canada to get involved, yes, probably if more countries were gotten involved a while back, we wouldn't be in this situation. I think anything that can help spread the word of what is happening in the country and the crisis, the humanitarian crisis it's a very dire situation. Anytime that we can bring that up and make people aware that that is happening is a possibility for help to get to those in need. Canada, I find that Canada has a very calm energy as a country. That's the feeling that it gives me. So I think that's a very good thing in this situation, to have a moment to, take a breather and, let's really think this through and see what can be done, and how can the different countries help. I think it's not a moment for reactions. I think we had that, but we need to let go that first visceral reaction and now take a minute to appreciate the situation and really think on how we can solve it, because it's a complicated point in general in the world. It seems like it's so we need to, anytime, any opportunity that the people in the world and the governments have to come up with ways of, because we only have so much land. It's like we cannot fight for something that is finite. Like it's gonna, at some point there's no more that you can obtain. What are you gonna do? So I think we can figure out a way of living, coexisting in the world. And I think any country like Canada that has that calmness and that opportunity to say, hey, hold on a minute, let's see what we can do. It's a great opportunity. I think that's something that I would appreciate as a Venezuelan Canadian.
Back to phonically how to say your name correctly because I want to make sure to do it correctly. Any tips on restaurants, cafes, or shops in which those who live in the greater Vancouver area or the lower mainland can
Yeah.
go to experience Venezuela?
hmm Um, there is a place in Port Moody. It's called Andes Cafe. If you want to have an arepa, that is a great place to go. They sell other kinds of food. They sell tequeños and they sell pasteles, which is a different kind of empanada. They sell empanadas as well. That is a great place to go. It's a tiny little place, nice little spot in Port Moody. But we have great catering places. Venezuelans are known for it's like a cheese finger. It's a piece of cheese that is wrapped in dough and it's fried or air fried now. My kids die for that. Any time that we have an opportunity, any event that the society does and they think there's gonna be food, it's like I want that. It's called a tequeño. It's a tequeño. Yeah. It's a piece of cheese. It's a fresh cheese, but it's wrapped in a thin dough, completely encased, and you fry it. And you eat it warm, and then the cheese melts, and it's like the strings.
My
There
goodness,
is
you're gonna find a hear knocking at your door in a couple of days, and there I will be.
there is a lady that makes them. Her business, and if it's possible, I will give you their Instagram handle. But yeah, she has a business that is called Teque Gourmet, YVR, TEKE Gourmet, like the word gourmet. and why we are. And there are a couple more. Romero's Artisan. They cook any kind of Venezuelan food. If you have, they're catering companies. If you have events that you want to have, or you want to have some dinner at home, they will cook them for you. And the last thing is Venezuelan street food, or the arepas, is burgers and hot dogs. But our burgers and hot dogs are not the normal burger and hot dogs. We have different sauces. You would get your bun and your wiener, but then you have fried egg, or you would have like the hickory sticks, the little potato chips. But you would have Parmesan cheese as well, and then you have the sauces. You have a garlic sauce and a cilantro sauce and a corn sauce, a bacon sauce, cheese and mayo and mustard, all of that. So the guys at Salsa Dog do that here. And again, they cater and they would serve it for you. And they have all the different sauces and toppings. So those four, I would say. But yeah, if you're ever in Port Moody, Andes Cafe is a good place to go. Have a little Venezuelan food. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, and to learn from the country. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's Venezuela is more than the things that are happening to it. The place, we're blessed to have a great natural beauty, and the people. It's an experience that very few places will be able to provide. So yeah, I mean, and for better or worse, the diaspora that is all throughout the world has been doing a great job at communicating and sharing our culture with the world. So it is now probably quite easy to find Venezuelan food anywhere and have, maybe you have your Zumba class and that's a Venezuelan teacher, or, a Venezuelan music that may be happening in a place nearby that you don't even know about. Yeah, it would be great if locally, companies would be able to share some of that and support the businesses that are making a living in the city. That would be a great thing.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm gonna take that and maybe I'll put out a little bit of a challenge to the corporate community to jump on that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really fun idea and one
Hmm.
that people would really enjoy. I have one more question for you about Venezuela, or about Venezuelan people, well, Canadian. What do you feel distinguishes your culture from others here in Canada? So, for example, what distinguishes a Venezuelan Canadian from a Mexican Canadian, Dominican Canadian, Brazil, uh, Cuban Canadian, or whatever it may be? What would you say? Is there one thing that you think really pops out to you right away that is a distinguishing factor for that?
I would say um, what differentiates Venezuelan from other Latin cultures is the mixture. We have so many different cultures, and we were smart enough to take a little bit of all of them, a little bit of their way of speaking, a little bit of their food, a little bit of their music, and we made our own. Well, you know, respecting it too and celebrating it. I think that is the beauty of the country, having all those flavors and different things happening. Now with the internet, it's amazing for me to see this is coming from this place and this is coming from that place and this is how we do it. Sometimes I think, oh, they're talking like me, and turns out no, no, no. We observed some words and some ways of saying things from different cultures, and I think that is what makes Venezuelan culture the richest, is having all those that and I find that here as well. Like Vancouver has that where you have the different cultures, different foods, and people are familiar with them, and they have no, it's no different that you have Korean food or Indian food, or and the smells and the people. It's I think that's the best thing that we have. And it makes me feel a little more home here to know that, there's this mixture here as well. I would say the Venezuelan Canadian Society of BC. I have been involved with them for many years now. I found them when I was looking for something that would help me feel connected with my country, but also in this community, to have some roots. We do, or mission is to share our culture with Canada and with BC. And so it, for me, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to volunteer with them and have the opportunity to see my people and the activities that we do, and for people to be able to see our music and be able to enjoy some of my culture when they see, the dances that we organize, or the Christmas bazaar that we do. Christmas is a big thing for us. We have a big Christmas party like they used to be back home, and that is, it keeps me connected. And we also do fundraising events. And for me, it's important to teach my kids to do that, to help people, that there's people that are less fortunate. So it's a great opportunity for me to bring them in and, let's help, let's, do whatever we have to do. Sometimes we have smokies that we work with KMS very closely. They donate smokies, and we cook them and we offer them, and it's a chance to talk to people and ask them for donations for people in need in Venezuela. It's a great thing for me to be able to show my culture to my kids, and for them to feel that they're part of it and they're helping. And the spirit of helping others, that is very Canadian too. So I would say that is the closest to me. It's something that every year at the end of the year, when we do our last meeting and we kind of go through everything that we accomplished in a year, it's like you're tired, but after you see all those things, it's like, okay, I'll do it one more time, one more year. Let's go.
Yes.
So yeah,
I'm just bringing up the website here, actually, just so that people are aware. Venezuelan Canadian Society of British Columbia is at vcsbc.ca. I'll repeat that, vcsbc.ca. I'll also link to it below the episode. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, it's Meriely. She told me to call her Meriely, but I insisted on going with the Spanish pronunciation, so that's what I get at the end of the episode. Arias, who is the director of the Venezuelan Canadian Society of British Columbia, has joined us today to talk about Venezuela and more.
Thank you so much, and amen. We'll take all the prayers, anything that we can get to help the country. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my country and to show that we're more than just the news. No problem. Okay, be kind and truly connect. You're listening to Rachel Thexton Connects.